David Pastrnak is once again putting himself in the MVP conversation.
You're Locked On Bruins, your daily podcast on the Boston Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Bruins fans, and welcome back to the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast. I'm your host, Ian McLaren, and this is a daily show where we discuss all things Spoke to Beat. Today is Monday, January 27th, and I want to thank you so much for making Locked On Bruins part of your daily routine, free and available on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Super Bowl 59 is here, and there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. New customers can bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Today on the podcast, we're going to be breaking down Saturday's win over the Colorado Avalanche, and we will also take a look at the week ahead. There's actually only 6 games remaining before the 2-week Four Nations face-off break. And some big points on the table for the Bruins, who still remain in the thick of the playoff hunt. But there's a bunch of teams in that mix and not going anywhere anytime soon, it appears. Before we get into all that, quick reminder, you can find the podcast on social media at Locked NHL Bruins. You can find me, my hockey thoughts, dad jokes at Ian C. McLaren. Now, the big story heading into Saturday's game against the Colorado Avalanche was a trade the visiting team pulled off the night before, sending Mikko Rantanen to the Carolina Hurricanes, acquiring Martin Necas and Jack Drury, with our old friend Taylor Hall serving as a middleman with the Blackhawks, retaining some salary, and Hall being sent to Carolina as part of the deal. So Rantanen subtracted off of the Avalanche roster ahead of this game, but Necas and Drury, with the Avs being on an Eastern Conference road trip, were able to play that game, and Necas did not look very much out of place. The Bruins, however, were able to hold on for the 3-1 victory, despite generating only 15 shots on goal and being outshot 28-15. Why did they win? Large part due to the play of David Pastrnak. Yes, Morgan Geekie scored his 14th and 15th goals of the season. He's been on an absolute heater as of late. But you can chalk that up to being deployed on a line with Pastrnak, who had both primary assists on those Geekie goals and who also scored the empty netter to seal it with a few seconds left. He's now up to well over a point per game pace after being stuck below there for quite a large part of the season. He's been absolutely on fire in January. He's up to 9th in NHL scoring with 59 points, and he's now on pace for 39 goals, 56 assists for 95 points in 82 games after, again, just in January or in December being on pace for below a point per game. He's got 11 goals and 11 assists here in January with still a couple games remaining. He has only had 2 games this month with no points. That was back against Edmonton and Tampa Bay on the 7th and 9th. But look at these stat lines over the last several games. 3 points against the Avs, 2 points in a win over Ottawa, 1 point in the loss to New Jersey, 2 points in a win over San Jose, 3 points in 3 consecutive games when the Bruins beat Florida, beat Tampa, and then lost to Ottawa in a shootout. This guy has been absolutely on fire, and once again, it's clear he belongs in the NHL Hart Trophy race consideration. Yes, he's still only 9th in NHL scoring, but you look at the fact that he is elevating his teammates, the fact that Boston's next highest scorer is well behind him in that race. You look at Nathan MacKinnon. He had Mikko Rantanen there for a while playing with him. Leon Draisaitl playing with Connor McDavid. Mitch Marner, of course, has Austin Matthews, William Nylander. Jack Eichel, you could make an argument, belongs in the Hart Trophy conversation as well. But when you look at scoring for the Bruins, there's a huge gap between number 1 and number 2. And these two guys don't even play on the same line. You have David Pastrnak with 59 points, Brad Marchand with 38. There's nobody else even above 30 points for this team. David Pastrnak is driving this bus, and it's not just his goal scoring abilities, his playmaking here, as highlighted by the fact that Morgan Geekie is scoring at such a high level these days. Pastrnak drawing the primary assists. He is an MVP for this team and should be considered in the conversation if the Bruins make the playoffs. Now, that's quite a big if at this point. But again, you look at the fact that Pastrnak is 9th in scoring. Brad Marchand is 76th. No other player in the top 10 has such a big gap between first and second on their teams. It's just unheard of to have that level of production and then have such a big gap between them. There's literally nobody on this list, perhaps except for Jack Eichel, but no. Now that I look at it, he's got 62 points. Mark Stone, 44 points. Shea Theodore, 44 points. Pastrnak is alone in the top 10 in scoring with nobody else in the top 50 to help him along. So that should account for something. The Bruins played a fantastic road game. It was their home game. It was their 5th game in 7 days. Yes, the Avs were kind of reeling a bit from that trade. Nathan MacKinnon was pretty open after the game about being caught off guard a little bit by being sad about the end of his relationship with Mikko Rantanen. The Avs getting ahead of that unrestricted free agency situation, dealing Rantanen to the Hurricanes. That certainly strengthens their bid in the Eastern Conference, which remains pretty wide open. And, you look at the Bruins with those two paths, still increasingly difficult to argue for adding at this point. We'll take a look at the updated standings, the week ahead, some more stats from this game. But the big storyline from this one, apart from what Colorado did the night before, David Pastrnak, 2 primary assists on Morgan Geekie's goals, a goal of his own, 22 points so far in January with 2 games remaining. And he has been just unbelievable so far here in 2025. In fact, if you look at all scores this month, he leads the way with 11 goals, which is tops in the NHL since January 1st, and 22 points is also tops in the NHL. 3 ahead of Nikita Kucherov, Philip Forsberg, 4 ahead of Leon Draisaitl. David Pastrnak has been on another level this month, and if he keeps it going, the Bruins make the playoffs. He should be a finalist for the Hart Trophy. We'll take a look at some more stats and signals to take away from this game here as the podcast continues. Super Bowl 59 is here. 1 game, 2 teams, endless possibilities. There's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether it's predicting the first touchdown, calling the MVP, or even betting on the coin toss, FanDuel makes it easy to get in on the action. With live betting all game long, you can adjust your bets as the game unfolds and feel the thrill from kickoff to the final whistle. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Again, bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. Knowing that you can place a $5 bet and potentially win $200 in bonus bets for the Super Bowl, the icing on the cake. Download the app, FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, the official partner of Super Bowl 59. All right, so of course, in giving David Pastrnak the adulation for those primary assists on the Geekie goals, we can't ignore the fact that Morgan Geekie himself is on an absolute tear. Don't forget, he was scratched for 5 of the first 16 games of the season. He has now scored 5 goals over his past 5 games, is on pace for 24 goals after reaching the 15-goal mark here on Saturday. His previous career high was set last season, I believe, 17 goals. So he's already only 2 away from that with a bunch of games remaining on the schedule this season. Now, he is shooting 16.5%, which is 4% higher than his career average. But, when you're playing with a dynamic playmaker like David Pastrnak is proving to be, then you're going to get higher danger opportunities. And when you're this hot, you've got luck on your side as well. So Morgan Geekie playing unbelievably at the moment, and it really makes an argument for re-signing him. He can be a free agent this upcoming summer. He's shown a lot of chemistry, obviously, with Pastrnak and Zacha on the top line. You don't want to overpay for a guy like him, but if you can fit him into the mix on a pretty nice deal, then it looks as though they should eye him as a piece moving forward. Now, Jeremy Swayman made 27 saves in this one after missing 1 game with an upper body injury. He said it was something they wanted to monitor and get solved pretty quickly. The trainers worked their magic. He was able to get back out there today. You recall Michael DiPietro was recalled, and he was the backup in their previous game. But Swayman back in the mix, and hopefully he's able to stay healthy and keep it going moving forward. Mentioned Morgan Geekie, 5 goals in his past 5 games, 6 in his past 7. And he said the chemistry with Pastrnak and Zacha continues to grow. They played together for a while. Easy when you learn the habits of the guys you're playing with. Always fun to play with guys with lots of skill. He's in awe of the things Pastrnak does with a puck. He's trying to get open, and it's a lot of fun right now. So, try to keep having fun, he said. Pasternak's on a 7-game point streak, 7 goals, 10 assists over that time, 22 points in his past 12 games. Sacco, interim coach Joe Sacco, saying he's finding his game. He's getting that confidence level up to where it usually is. He wants to help the team win, and he takes it upon himself to make sure he's producing at a high level. That's what he's doing now, seeing the game very well and feeling good about himself again. Pastrnak, again, the 2 primary assists. He has assisted on 10 of Geekie's 15 goals this season. So that shows you how important he is to Morgan Geekie's success to date. Bruins have won their past 4 at home, now 10-1-1 in their past 12 in Boston. John Beecher blocked 5 shots in this one, which is pretty impressive. Again, the Bruins were wildly outshot in this one. It was 12-5 after 1 period, 19-8 after 2 periods, 28-15 overall. The Bruins did not allow the Avs to score on the power play, which was key. They did not get a power play opportunity of their own. 22 blocked shots for the Bruins. John Beecher leading the way with the majority of those in this one. So perhaps a game the Bruins didn't deserve to win, but Jeremy Swayman kept them in it with 27 saves. One of his, I don't think he made a ton of spectacular saves in this one, but obviously did enough. He had a 964 save percentage in this one, and his season save percentage now back closer to 900, 898. And that has really turned around over the last little bit. Still hoping to get over that 900 mark. Don't forget his career average is 914. So still well below what we expect from him, but he's certainly rounding into form as of late. Now, the Bruins weren't necessarily helped too much over the weekend in terms of the playoff picture. The Ottawa Senators won 2 games over the weekend, and they have actually slipped into third in the Atlantic. They have 56 points, tied with the Bruins, but with 1 game in hand. Of course, always super important to look at the point percentages. Right now, the Bruins sit 7th in the Eastern Conference in total points. Good for first in the wild card chase ahead of Tampa Bay. But games in hand, always so important to look at. And if you kick it down to point percentage, the Bruins currently sit in 9th, I believe. They did overtake the Montreal Canadiens, thankfully. The Bruins with 2 wins in a row. Their point percentage is now 549, slightly behind Columbus, who's at 550. The top 6 remains unchanged. Washington, Carolina, who again added Rantanen and Taylor Hall, subtracting Natchez and Drury, probably a net win for them. So they improved here. The Maple Leafs in 3rd, followed by New Jersey, Florida, Tampa, Ottawa in 7th, and the Blue Jackets in 8th in terms of point percentage. They're 1 point back of the Bruins with 1 game in hand. The Bruins goal differential now up to in a tie for 3rd worst in the Eastern Conference. Give it up for the Boston Bruins, now at -20. The Flyers are -21. The Penguins are -39. The Bruins now level with the Buffalo Sabres here at -20, which is still not very great. Now, if you look at the Eastern Conference as a whole, here's a stat to keep an eye on. There's only 2 teams below 500 in the Eastern Conference. Just completely wide open here. The Flyers are at 500. The Islanders, 510. The Red Wings, 520. The Rangers, 531. They're coming off a loss yesterday to the Colorado Avalanche, but they're 6-1-3 over their last 10. The Canadiens, 6-2-2. So pretty wide open still here in the Eastern Conference. And the Bruins have 6 big games remaining before the 4 Nations face-off break. And we'll take a look at what is coming up in the week ahead for the Black and Gold here as the podcast continues. All right, a bit of a lighter week for the Bruins after playing 4 games last week, 5 games in 7 days. They will head to Buffalo to take on the Sabres tomorrow night. Then they will fly home to take on the Jets on Thursday. And then they will have a matinee game with the New York Rangers on Saturday, a 3:30 p.m. Eastern start next Saturday. Next week, they will host the Minnesota Wild on Tuesday before going to New York to play the Rangers on Wednesday. So a back-to-back there. Then they'll have 2 days off before taking on the Vegas Golden Knights. Bruce Cassidy, Jack Eichel coming to town on Saturday the 8th, 3:30 p.m. Eastern start. And then they'll be off for 2 weeks as several Bruins will participate in the 4 Nations face-off. Now, an interesting thing happened yesterday where Alex Pietrangelo of the Vegas Golden Knights pulled out of that tournament despite playing for Vegas yesterday, citing injury. We could see that come more and more. Of course, Charlie McAvoy penciled to be in on that team for the USA. He has not played in several games. So if he's not able to play, get up to speed, perhaps he's the guy that will withdraw. And, I've lamented the fact that David Pastrnak will not be able to take part in this tournament. Czechs are world champions. And the fact that the games are being played in Boston, your premier player is not included in this event because they decided to limit it to 4 countries and not extend it out to Czechia and Slovakia or another country. Disappointing to be sure, but on the flip side, it could help in the long run to give them that extra rest and to help the Bruins down the stretch. Brad Marchand will take part in that tournament. Jeremy Swayman. I forget if Elias Lindholm, I believe, is playing for Sweden. Hampus Lindholm not taking part. Obviously, the Bruins could use him back sometime soon. And what's impressive about the Bruins' latest little surge here is the fact that they have been playing without Hampus Lindholm and Charlie McAvoy. So if they get those 2 guys back, who knows? Perhaps they will be able to solidify themselves as a playoff team. And I want to make this clear. I've been arguing for selling a bit, a retool, and that is only if it's clear that the Bruins are going to fall out of the playoff race. Do I think that if they squeak into the playoffs, they could contend or hang with some of the top teams in the Eastern Conference? Not necessarily, but playoff hockey is obviously more exciting than being outside looking in. I believe the Bruins have. Anytime you have a David Pastrnak, a Charlie McAvoy, a Jeremy Swayman to build around, you should be a competitive team. Don Sweeney has made some missteps, perhaps, in constructing the current roster. There will be some flexibility to fix some of that in the offseason with the decision on Trent Frederick, decision on Morgan Geekie, some other guys coming off the books. Perhaps they tweak it a little bit. I'd love to still see some young guys come up and get that experience playing down the stretch. Every game right now for the Bruins has a playoff level, well, maybe not exactly a playoff level intensity, but certainly playoff implications because every point matters for this team. Only 2 teams in the East below 500 right now. So especially with the loser point in the NHL, every point matters. And it would be great to see a Georgi Merkulov up, a Fabian Lysell up, if that means subtracting from the current roster guys who are not likely to be here next season, then recoup some picks and give some of your young guys a chance to compete down the stretch. If you're not going to do that, I don't see the point in holding on to those guys. If you're not willing to call them up and give them that experience down the stretch, coming into a playoff chase when, let's be honest, you're not really a contender, then what are you hanging on to these guys for? They've proven their mettle at the AHL level, especially a guy like Georgi Merkulov. So call him up and cut some of the weight off the big roster, get some picks back, and see what you have in a Merkulov before he becomes so discontent that he either pieces out to Russia or demands a trade himself. So the Bruins tomorrow night against the Buffalo Sabres. Buffalo, pretty much out of it at this point, let's be honest. The Sabres right now, bottom of the Eastern Conference with 41 points, a .418 point percentage, minus 20 goal differential, 4-6 in their last 10. They've lost 2 in a row. We'll preview that game more in depth tomorrow, as well as, like I've been promising, take a look at the immovables, the untouchables, and the trade candidates for the Bruins. We'll discuss that on tomorrow's podcast before previewing the Sabres game. We'll bring you all the latest here on the Black and Gold each and every day because that is what we do here on Locked On Boston Bruins. Thank you for making it part of your day today. Now check out the Locked On Fantasy Hockey podcast. You can become a fantasy expert and get the edge over your league mates with daily tips from Steal and Flip. It's all available on Locked On Fantasy Hockey on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts. Please do subscribe to Locked On Boston Bruins if you have not already. Please do have a great day. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. And we'll talk to you here again on the next episode of Locked On Boston Bruins.